This is Expand Your Mind, Heartfelt Inspiration. And today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I have a different lighting to kind of help soothe me. I have my self soothing music. I don't know if you're going to hear it on the video, but it's helping me stay calm, cool, and regulated. Because today I wanted to give a little bit of my testimony. Um, as I've stated in the past, I've gone through many situations that could have unalived me. Gone through all kinds of trauma and abuse since a very young age. But the one that I want to discuss is the most frightening one of them all. And that happened about 6 years ago. Um, so, me and my ex, we were looking for parking. Um, Even during that time, we weren't together during that time, but I'm not gonna go into deep details as to why he was still there and all this other stuff. Like to put it in a nutshell, he wasn't trying to leave me alone for quite some time, and it took a lot for me to enforce those boundaries. But anyway, the point of what I'm trying to say is we were looking for parking and there was none on my street, so we ended up finding parking on the hill that's at the top, which is the street the street right before you get to mine. So we were on the hill, and there was a party going on at one of the houses. And I immediately started to hear my guides tell me, "You're not safe, you're not safe, leave, you're not safe, you're not safe, leave." Like they just kept saying that over and over. But this was during a time when I had crippling self doubt and I dismissed the warnings. Um, I then heard my ancestors cry out, and it was so loud that even he heard it. He was like, "What is that? What is that crying? Like, what is that?" Like, so we both heard when my ancestors cried out. And my guides continuously kept saying, "You're not safe, you're not safe, you're not safe, leave." Right after the cries, we heard a gunshot. And I heeded the warning, and I was like, let's go. We're not safe, let's go. Right after the gunshot, there was a flock of people running up the hill, so we had to kind of wait for them to subside, and then he pulled off and started driving. Once he started driving, I heard gunshots again, and it sounded like it was coming from behind. So I went to look back. During this moment, everything was in slow motion. Literally, like how they make things go into slow motion in the movies, everything was like in slow motion. And I saw the silhouette of a man, and just letting them out. So I was screaming to the top of my lungs, the worst scream I've ever screamed in my life. And then the back glass shattered. When the back glass shattered, everything sped back up into real time. So my ex ended up getting grazed, but I didn't know he was grazed at the time. He just knew he had been hit. So for some odd reason, he decides to stop because he feels the pain. Mind you, the guy is behind us still reloading because he had already emptied out the first round he had. So I grabbed onto the steering wheel and I was like, "Floor it, just floor it." So he floored it. We ended up pulling over when we were like away from that area. When we pulled over, the EMTs ended up coming. They assessed him. They said that had it been a direct hit, he wouldn't have made it. Me, I was fortunate enough to not not be touched in the physical sense. I wasn't hit by anything. I was shielded. And the cops ended up coming because they had to run an investigation. So during the process of waiting for our ride, I counted all the bullets in the car, and yeah, he quite literally emptied his clip. So by the grace of God, due to the divine, I was unharmed in the physical sense, as I stated. Um, Once we got back on my street when I was with my brother and like we had just got on the street, I literally saw some of my ancestors patrolling because I was still outside, so they were watching over me as they always do. And I was kind of in awe because one of them was on horseback, and so my PTSD got way, 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 way worse after that. Any sudden noises would just kind of trigger me. Fireworks would trigger me. Anything going on in my blind spot would make me jump, and it would just and in the at that hill, I see it on a daily basis. So I had to deal with the fact that wow, that's the hill that you know. But all that, I still went to work. I was working as a medical assistant at the time, so I still was going to work and doing what I had to do for the people. But I found that I had already had challenges keeping myself regulated, and that incident spiraled me out of control. Like it was to the point where like when I would get triggered at work and I would suppress, just trying to mask and everything like that, my body would go into shakes. Like literally, like I'd like this, like I'd be like my whole body would just be shaking, and it became noticeable. People started noticing there was something wrong. So I went and got help. I reached out to my primary care. I let her know my situation. She sent me to psychiatry. I got a hold of a great psychiatrist. He put me on medication and listened to me and diagnosed me with all the things that I was diagnosed with. And then he recommended I get a therapist. So that was another challenge on its own because I struggled for quite many years. I struggled for so many years. I didn't find an actual therapist till last year, and I only had her for a few months, and then we kind of parted ways. Not on my. I guess she got. I don't know what happened, but one day she was working for them, and then she wasn't. But I did have the fortune, and I was blessed to have her for a few months, and we did connect, and she did help me, and um, gave me great tips and tools and things like that. But throughout that time when I didn't have a therapist, I relied heavily on my sessions with my psychiatrist because he wasn't only there to prescribe me, he actually cared about what I had to say, and I was mindful enough to not overdo it. I would just tell him like the major things. um I found that nature, I found that the universe, I found that Mother Gaia was my best therapist. Going out in nature, going and enjoying the sun, listening to the birds, hearing the sound of water running, and singing and dancing and just doing art and just doing the things that I loved to do that I kind of suppressed. Um, it got to a point where I finally felt in control again, but it was while on the medication. And I got tired of relying on the medication. So eventually I did what I had, I started going more natural route. But what I'm trying to say is the night that happened, if I had any doubt that I was divinely guided, I didn't have any doubt anymore. If I had any doubt about my intuition, that was shattered because I started to evaluate every other situation I had ever been in my life, and I always had the warnings. I always picked up the signs. I just ignored them. In the beginning, out of naivety and being closed minded, being on autopilot. And later on, it was due to rebellion and me being an adventurous being. But I learned that there's a reason. I said arena. I apologize. I learned that there's a reason why they are there. They're there to guide us. They're there to help us. They're there to steer us from doing anything malicious. Not that I did, but just or keeping us from harm. But we have to be connected, and we have to be willing to listen, and we have to do our part. So as I stated before, I am indeed a walking miracle. And although I'm a lot better throughout the years, I'm a lot better. I still deal with PTSD. But initially, just being in a car would set me off, especially once it got dark. But now, I'm actually able to go down the hill without any issues. I do mention it every time not every time, but a lot of the times I'll walk past it and I'm like, oh, look, that's the hill I got shot at. Because I see it every day. I see it every day. So as I stated before, we don't have control of the things that we may encounter, but we do have control of ourselves. And it is important to be connected to God. It is important to be connected. It is important to listen to the warnings. If you have any gifts, utilize them for the higher good, especially to help yourself. There are people out there that think I don't have any issues in terms of struggles and things of that sort because of how I move on my daily life. And it's not that I don't have challenges or obstacles. I just choose to be happy. I choose to smile. I choose to be a light in this world because there was a time when things could have been different. There was a time when I had things gone the other way. I wouldn't even be here right now making this video. So don't hold on to any hatred or anything of that sort. Just seek understanding or seek knowledge. There are people out there that don't believe in God. But I know that the Most High is very real. I speak to him daily. He has saved me countless of times. And it's the most purest and unconditional love I have ever experienced ever in my life. Have a wonderful and blessed weekend.